Ah, to be young again. To feel the crisp air on bare arms and legs. To have nothing much to do but make mischief. Oh, yes, to be young. But I suppose you were young once, too, eh? I began my career as a journalist with high ideals and lofty dreams. I thought I could improve the world by exposing vice and calling out criminals. I believed that society could be better. For instance, I knew all the beggars. I knew the rookeries where the old houses stood shoulder to shoulder, barely a foot apart. Can feel the chill of death on my bones. He killed 5 women, mutilating their bodies with surgical precision. Became known as the Whitechapel murderer or the leather apron killer. But why? His motives remain a mystery, as does his identity. Who was Jack the Ripper? Was he a madman or a demon? A new theory claims that Jack the Ripper was actually the famous author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. What evidence do they have? Not much. His contemporary, the painter Walter Sickert, claimed that Conan Doyle had confessed to him. That seems a bit shaky. Another theory holds that Jack the Ripper was Montague John Druitt, a barrister who drowned himself after the last murder. Maybe all we know for sure is that he died without being caught. The case remains open. The darkness presses close. The shadows grow longer. Candle flickers and fades. I can hear the ghosts in the halls. They call to me, beckoning me to join them. Soon I will go to them. Soon I will be one of them. Each had a yard in the middle for drying clothes, and the wash hung from window to window. There were backyards, front yards, and stairwells. The yards were crowded with people and animals, so be sure to subscribe to the channel. Horses, pigs, dogs, and cats roamed free. The stairwells were dark and smelled of stale waste. The floors were slippery with waste oil and grease. The stairs creaked underfoot, and the walls were scarred and torn from years of use. There were great stone lions, monuments to a long-dead age. The baseboards were carved with leaves and flowers. The doorknobs were heavy. Brass hinges moaned as they swung open. Bells clanged and echoed through the narrow streets. The houses were tall and dark, with barred windows and padlocked doors. Each had a brass plate on the wall listing the residents. Inside, the halls were narrow and steep. The ceilings were low, and the plaster cracked and falling. I remember how the candelabers glowed in the dim light and cast strange shadows on the walls. The furniture was old and worn, but the families were neat and tidy. They kept their rooms clean. The children slept in rows in the bedrooms. They shared a room with a family of 6 or 8. Everyone slept together, parents and children, often with a board across the room to divide the sexes. The living rooms were cluttered with furniture and bric-a-brac. There were old hats and shoes, stacks of books, newspapers and magazines, piles of dirty clothes, toys and games, and scraps of food on the table. The dining rooms were dark and smelled of stale waste. The kitchens were small and smoky, with old pots and pans hanging from hooks in the walls. The fireplaces were choked with ashes and the chimneys clogged with soot. The back stairs groaned underfoot. The dampness seeped through the walls and floors. The drains were broken and the sewage backed up. Rats ran through the holes in the walls. The ghosts of former residents lingered in the halls and stairwells. They watched the living from the shadows. They whispered secrets on the stairs. Sometimes they even spoke aloud. I heard them sometimes when I was alone at night. I would hear the rattle of a carriage or the rumble of a wagon. The sound would come from the street above or below. Then I would hear footsteps in the hall. The floorboards would creak underfoot. Shadows would move in the flickering candlelight. I would see the ghosts go by, but I never spoke to them. I never called out to them. I never tried to stop them. I just watched them go. I knew the one-legged soldier who sat outside the Three Ninnies Tavern begging, that damn King George for shooting him in the leg. And I knew the little girl who sang and danced for pennies. Yes, and the blind beggar woman who saw better than anyone. She wasn't blind at all. Or how about the Irish? Those wandering hordes who slept under the arches along the riverfront. There were hundreds of thousands of them then, and now they're gone. I mean, most of them. I think there are only a handful left. I used to see them coming down the hill from the East End, dragging their sick and dying along with them. Some of them were handsome, but others were repulsive. They were dirty, unwashed, smelly, and their manners were appalling. But they didn't seem to mind. They were happy, singing and laughing. The old ones shuffled along, leaning on sticks. The young ones skipped rope and shouted games. They played leapfrog and hide and seek. The mothers carried their babies on their backs and sang songs to them. The fathers told jokes and made rude faces. Sometimes they stopped and made a circle. The men drank from a bottle and passed it around, while the women sang and danced. Once they had drunk their fill, they moved on, shouting and singing, and their laughter echoed across the dark water. Now, I'm old and grayer, and just plain tired. My teeth are shot. My eyesight isn't what it was, and I fear that my cough will take me soon. My life has been full of disappointments. Nothing changes. There are still slums and hunger and child labor. Vice and crime thrive. Society does not improve. So don't let the tone of my voice fool you. I know what it's like to be young. Well, here goes. London was young then, bursting with vigor and life, alive with sights, sounds, smells, pleasures, everything. It was an exciting place to be a reporter. There were so many stories around every corner. Recall walking down Saffron Hill near the old Cloth Hall. Yes, I can still see it. The fine homes built in 1722, empty now. I remember how the buildings looked, their beautiful gables and mansard roofs. The grime and dirt they'd gathered since then, and the people who lived there, oh, I knew them all. The men, women, boys and girls, the shopkeepers, artisans and laborers. They were alive with laughter and sorrow. They drank, gambled, fought, loved, hoped, and despaired. They had big dreams and even bigger appetites. They ate hearty food, drank plenty of beer and gin, and they were quick to anger. London was dirty then, and there was no pretense otherwise. Every brick and cobblestone was covered with grime. The stench of waste filled the streets. But these people were clean, or they wanted to be. They washed their hands before eating. They combed their hair and put on their finest clothes for Sunday service. Their manners could be rough, but they were courteous and kind. They helped each other. They had respect for one another. Theirs was a hard life, but they faced it without complaint. They never asked for help. They just got on with it. They were not sullen, but cheerful, ready to laugh and sing. They did not complain about the lack of work or the meager wages. They did not grudge the rich their fortunes. They just got on with life. In those days, Londoners were robust, hardy, strong people. These were the children of a tough and hardy race, and they looked it. They did not stroll about, wrapped in furs and woolens. They went barefoot. They were hardened by exposure to the elements. They were self-reliant. They stood up straight with calloused hands and faces browned by the sun and wind. They were healthy and handsome. Why? Just yesterday I was a boy myself, skipping about the yard with the rest of the barefoot street urchins. Well, perhaps it wasn't yesterday, but that is when I was a reporter for the London Morning Chronicle, covering Parliament and all the rest. I suppose you want to hear more about the good old days. There were so many different kinds of people. I mean, there are now, but back then, too. I knew every street, every alley and courtyard in those districts. We were all young then, but now I am old. My time has come. Jack the Ripper struck terror into the hearts of Londoners in 1888. His reign of terror lasted only 3 months. Let's step into a parlor and sip some tea. Do you enjoy these tales from history? Oliver Twist, the name echoed down the endless hallways of the workhouse, a place not meant for a child, but Oliver had been thrust into its bowels nonetheless. Born in the dark, dank corners of the workhouse, he understood poverty, neglect, and hunger better than any joy childhood should have offered. This wasn't an uncommon story during the Industrial Revolution in England. Poverty was widespread, and children were particularly vulnerable. Abandoned, orphaned, or simply born into desperate circumstances, they were easy pawns for those looking to exploit cheap labor. For Oliver, his journey begins with escape from the workhouse, a symbol of society's callousness towards its most vulnerable members. Here in the slums, he encounters a cast of characters who are as unforgettable as the settings they inhabit. Take, for example, the Artful Dodger, a master of the criminal underworld. Despite the hardships they face, there's a sense of camaraderie, of shared suffering and resilience. Neighbors help neighbors, sharing what little they have and providing emotional support in the face of overwhelming adversity. It's a testament to the strength of the human spirit that even in the darkest corners of London, bonds of community and kindness can flourish. With his quick hands and sharper mind, he's a child of the streets, adept at surviving and thriving in ways that seem almost alien to Oliver, It immerses the reader in the atmosphere of the slums, allowing us to feel as if we're right there amidst the bustling crowds. The sights, sounds, and smells become integral to our understanding of the characters and their lives. For instance, the stench of waste might evoke disgust, but it also underscores the lack of sanitation and the desperate living conditions. Similarly, the distant sound of laughter or the aroma of freshly baked bread serve as poignant reminders of the simple joys that are denied to those living in poverty. We're reminded of the power of storytelling to transport us to different worlds, to make us feel deeply, and to challenge us to be agents of change in our own time. The world of the 1830s may be gone, but its echoes remain, urging us to strive for a world where every child has a chance at a brighter future, and every person can live with dignity and hope. By engaging our senses, Dickens intensifies our emotional connection to the story and compels us to confront the harsh realities of life in the slums. The fear of starvation, the constant struggle for basic necessities, and the ever-present threat of illness or death cast a long shadow over the characters and the choices they make, in place making it feel as real to us as if we were living it alongside his characters. His London slums aren't just a setting, they're a living, breathing entity that shapes the destinies of those who inhabit it. Through his evocative prose, the streets, the buildings, and even the air itself become characters in their own right, contributing to a narrative that is as powerful as it is heartbreaking. But he does so in a way that evokes both sorrow and admiration. We've walked the muddy streets, breathed in the smoky air, and witnessed the struggles of ordinary people trying to navigate an ever-changing world. Along the way, we've met characters whose lives are indelibly etched in our memory. Oliver, with his untamed spirit, the artful dodger, the embodiment of street smarts. Fagin, the tragic mentor, and Nancy, the beacon of hope amidst despair. We see it in his descriptions of the resilient children at play, the resourceful individuals trying to make an honest living. It's the story they inhabit, a tale of hardship, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of a better life. Through Oliver's eyes, we've seen poverty not as a distant statistic, but as a lived reality. We felt the gnawing pangs of hunger, the bone-deep chill of inadequate shelter, and the crushing weight of societal neglect. Yet we've also witnessed the indomitable spirit of humanity, the kindness of strangers, the strength of community, and the unwavering hope that even in the darkest of times, the dawn will eventually break, and the acts of kindness that occur even in the direst of circumstances. Through Oliver's eyes, we're able to witness the humanity that persists in the face of dehumanizing conditions, reminding us that even in the darkest places, the light of human spirit can shine through. For Oliver, his innocence and vulnerability make him especially susceptible to the dangers around him, emphasizing the urgency for him to find a way out of this perilous situation. The rhythmic clatter of horse-drawn carts mingles with the cries of street vendors and the murmur of countless conversations taking place in hushed tones. The air itself is thick with the aroma of cooking oil, stale waste, and the occasional waft of fresh bread from a distant bakery, teasing the senses with flavors that are just out of reach. Then there's Fagin, a shadowy figure, who heads a gang of young pickpockets. Living in a cave of a house filled with secrets, he embodies the darkness that can consume those who are abandoned and desperate. Nancy, too, stands out as a complex character, caught between the brutal realities of the slums and the glimmer of hope for a better life. Her loyalty, courage, and ultimately her tragic fate become a defining part of this grim tale. His arrival in the slums is marked by hunger and destitution. Each character reflects a facet of the social issues that Dickens was keen on highlighting, such as child labor, poverty, and the lack of opportunities for advancement. Their presence in the narrative not only enriches the story, but also serves as a reminder of the systemic failures that allow such desperate measures as pickpocketing and the exploitation of children to thrive. This isn't a picturesque poverty, but a brutal, unforgiving struggle for mere survival. We see it in the hollow cheeks of a child begging on a street corner, or in the haunted look of an overworked mother trying to shield her children from the worst of their surroundings. It's a poverty that strips away dignity, leaving people exposed to the elements and the indifference of a society that seems determined to forget their existence. The workhouse, though, was merely the beginning of Oliver's journey. He would soon find himself thrown into the heart of London's underbelly. The slums, where the true harshness of the time awaited him. We find ourselves in 1837 London, where we just learned about life in the slums. And now, we're going to explore them through the eyes of Oliver Twist. Entering the world of Charles Dickens, the literary giant whose pen brought London's forgotten to the forefront of society's consciousness. 8. London in the 1830s was a city of stark contrasts. While some neighborhoods enjoyed relative affluence, others became overcrowded hives of poverty and despair. The industrial boom had drawn in masses of people from rural areas, and with them came a surge in crime and destitution. These areas were neglected by the authorities, becoming breeding grounds for disease, squalor, and a deep sense of hopelessness. We're also going to use AI art to bring this experience to life, creating visuals based on text prompts inspired by Dickens' vivid descriptions. As we follow young Oliver into the labyrinthine streets, it's essential to understand the backdrop against which his story unfolds. Picture this then. The air is thick with fog, coal smoke, and the stench of waste. The streets are a maze of narrow, winding alleys with buildings so close together that the only light comes from the flickering gas lamps above. As we navigate these shadowy lanes, we see life on display in all its rawness. There are ragged children playing, dodging the piles of refuse that litter the ground. Dilapidated houses lean precariously, their windows' vacant sockets staring out blindly. We might catch glimpses of families huddled together in rooms without a shred of privacy, their lives laid bare within four crumbling walls. In this environment, hope is a fragile thing. Our narrative follows Oliver as he navigates this landscape, meeting characters who are as vividly drawn as the streets they inhabit. Through their stories and interactions with Oliver, we gain insight into the harsh realities of life in the slums. Navigating through the slums with Oliver, we see that community is a strong thread that binds the residents together. Yet it's important to acknowledge the insidious effects of poverty that seep into every aspect of life. The beauty of Dickens' writing is that he doesn't shy away from depicting the ugliness of the slums. Now let's delve into the language Dickens employs to transport us to the heart of the slums. The cobbled streets are alive with sound and smell. Dickens uses this sensory detail to do more than just set the scene. The genius of Dickens lies in his ability to capture the essence of a time, and with that, we come to the end of our journey through the London slums of the 1830s, a period of profound social change and stark inequality. But it's not just the characters and the setting that have resonated with us. As we leave the slums behind, we carry with us the lessons learned and the empathy deepened. And I've been living here in England for a while now. And today, we're going to take a tour through the Whitechapel neighborhood of London. Here, too, are the quiet rows of homes that hid them. So if you're ready, let's begin. It's both a biography of Jack's victims and a thorough look at the case against him. You can also watch a series on Curiosity Stream, which covers recent forensic investigations of the crimes. Curiosity Stream is an entertainment powerhouse with thousands of documentaries, non-fiction series, and thrillers from around the world. I use it to stay informed on current events, on science and history. But I love their collection of international thrillers. Their shows transport me to other countries, helping me experience cultures I may never otherwise visit. So from home, I can wind my way through dark London streets, or I can follow a detective on a sun-drenched Mediterranean island. The possibilities are endless. Our tour begins in the heart of Whitechapel, specifically on this corner, where the Royal London Hospital stands today. The Tabernacle Chapel offered refuge and prayers. The 10 Bells pub provided cheap beer and company. The streets teemed with hard-working people. Shops sold spices and sweets. Children played. Life went on. And even in the darkest corners of Whitechapel, flowers pushed up through the cracks, reaching toward the light. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this tour, please subscribe so you don't miss our future explorations. Thanks for coming along. I'll see you next time. But come with me now to 1888, when on the opposite corner sat 10 Rivington Street. Here, in a third-story room with a barred window, lived Mary Ann Nichols. She was 43 years old, her life worn thin by hard edges and harder times. Her husband had left her many years before, leaving her with 4 young children to care for. In the scant hours between cleaning floors and tending fires, she cared for them still, nursing them until they could fend for themselves. But now she had little money, little sleep, and less hope. She was pregnant, not with child, but with a problem. A a consequence of nights spent seeking work, seeking food, seeking company. She would soon be branded as one of London's fallen women, a term used for those who traded sex for cash, a label applied with little care for the circumstances. On the night of August 31st, 1888, Mary was out late, walking the dimly lit streets, calling out to any potential customers. Soon after midnight, she turned toward home, walking down this very road, unaware that she was being followed. Suddenly, her attacker struck, stabbing her repeatedly in the chest. As dawn broke, Mary's body lay here in the gutter. She had never made it home. That night, London awoke to horror. A new kind of killer seemed to be stalking the poor. Many similar crimes had happened before, but none had been solved. And there was always a question of how much notice London wanted to take of such tragedies. But this case was different. The police called him Leather Apron Jack, or simply Jack, based on a note he sent them. They would soon learn that he was likely more nicknamed than one true name. And yet over the next few weeks, Jack would strike again and again. His victims, mostly sex workers, would share certain characteristics: poverty, ill health, perhaps previous arrests for minor offenses, but they differed in other ways: age, appearance, circumstance. And though this added confusion, it also revealed a terrible certainty. Jack chose his victims. He hunted them down. The second victim was Elizabeth Stride, found on this street, then Annie Chapman here. Both killed on September of 1888. And finally, Catherine Edos, brutally mutilated, found in Mitre Square right around the corner from where we started. By now, the people of London were in a panic. Each murder echoed through the foggy streets, shaking people in their homes. The Whitechapel neighborhood, known for its poverty, was now known for fear. And in the midst of all this, 3 more names appeared. Victims of Jack the Ripper: Mary Jane Kelly, killed on November; Elizabeth Jackson, December 9th. And finally, Mary Jeanette, January of 1889. Her body was found in this very spot, a passageway between Commercial Street and Princelet Street. Jack's murders stopped suddenly, baffling the police and chilling the public. Some say he was arrested, others that he went abroad. The truth is, no one knows. Even the total number of his victims is debated, but historians generally agree that his reign of terror took place over a fairly short period of time, roughly 4 months, and in a fairly small area. And so we can still visit nearly every crime scene within a single afternoon. Today, the East End has changed. Some buildings are gone, others have been renovated. But even the tallest modern construction cannot erase the weight of what came before. And here, in the shadows of the Whitechapel neighborhood, we can see a killer's work preserved in the very streets themselves. What makes Jack the Ripper particularly compelling is the mystery of who he was and why he did what he did. There are dozens of theories, but no solid evidence. People have blamed royalty, blamed serial killers who died before Jack's time, blaming everyone from King Edward VII to Sigmund Freud. That last one comes from a journalist who created a famous but wholly inaccurate link between the murders and the work of Freud's former patient, Montag John Druitt. But with each passing year, fewer people believe these fanciful theories. Instead, they're returning to the evidence. Most scholars now focus on Walter Sickert, a painter and member of London's artistic elite. At the time, he was well liked, even as his paintings grew increasingly violent. Just after the murders ended, he fled to Dieppe in France, then returned to live under a false name. Another prime suspect is Francis Tumblety, an American who made headlines for beating women in the streets and slashing them with a razor. He too was gone by the end of 1888. But for the people of London's East End, the fear lingered. Fear of Jack the Ripper, fear of returning to the streets, fear of what lurked in the fog. Jack the Ripper remains one of history's most infamous killers, and I hope I've given you a sense of how his crimes shook Victorian London, how they affected the neighborhood, how they continue to fascinate us today. This is the East End, a place that feels far from Buckingham Palace and the Houses of Parliament, even though they're just 2 miles away. So join me now, and we will wind our way through the slums of Victorian London, following the crimes of an infamous killer. If you like tours like this, I invite you to subscribe, so you don't miss our weekly explorations of real places in real history, and you can follow along with maps and photos. Here, tucked beside the busy thoroughfares of modern London, are streets that witness some of the most terrifying crimes in history. Now, if you want to know more about the crimes of Jack the Ripper, I recommend starting with Hallie Rubenhold's book, The Ripper and the Women of Whitechapel. As we finish our tour, please remember that for all the shadows cast by Jack the Ripper, light, hope, and humanity still flickered in the East End. And while Whitechapel festered in poverty, affluence found its own gilded cage in London's West End. Ah, yes, I see. You do not wish to join me in this parlor. Very well, then let me simply drape my shawl about my shoulders and continue my tale from here. Her husband, Lord Carfax, has come to seek Holmes's help, and he does so in the most gentlemanly fashion possible, though I dare say with a hint of desperation underlying his veneer of polite society. A maid had disappeared from a house not far from Lord and Lady Carfax. Could the two cases be connected? Did you find Holmes's words about women enlightening or infuriating? And what do you think became of Lady Carfax? Lastly, do me a favor and show your support. Your kindness is a bright light in the darkness of the internet, and I appreciate it immensely. Till next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and above all, stay kind. With Watson at his side, Holmes calls upon their mutual friend, Inspector Lestrade, and together they visit the scene of the crime, soon discovering a small cottage with a garden overgrown in weeds. Is this where the maid lived, and where something terrible happened? As Holmes steps inside, a scream pierces the afternoon calm. Merging moments later, he explains that the maid has met with a violent death, probably at the hands of someone close to her, because her murderer has since set fire to the cottage in order to cover his tracks. As they leave the smoldering ruins behind, Holmes and Watson make the connection. The maid was killed with a pair of scissors, and who among them had access to such a weapon? Lady Carfax. Only moments later, they arrive at the Carfax residence. Holmes, knocking firmly on the door, informs Lord Carfax that he is placing his wife under arrest for murder. The catch? There is no evidence save Holmes's deductions. Can he prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the seemingly demure Lady Carfax is a remorseless killer? Oh. But this does not stop Holmes from confronting her. Dressing quickly, he escorts her downstairs and introduces her to Lestrade. "Are you aware, madam," begins Holmes coldly, "that you are charged with murder?" Lady Carfax replies with an eerie calm. "Indeed, Mr. Holmes? I knew you would come. It is all so dreadfully tedious. Do tell me when the cabmen are to take the things." "My dear Watson," remarks Holmes, "women are never late and never wrong. But they are always ready to tell you that they are not late and that they are not wrong." He gives Watson a pointed look. Perhaps he has been proven incorrect after all. But alas, it is too late to ponder this thought further. For Holmes is called abruptly away, and we, dear listener, are left to ponder this conundrum ourselves. Are women as illogical as Holmes proclaims, or are they masters of manipulation and deception? Is Lady Carfax guilty, as charged, or innocent, a victim of circumstance? Or perhaps there is more to her words than meets the eye. Oh, to be a fly upon that wall, to eavesdrop on the conversation between two great minds. I feel myself becoming a moth drawn to the flame of their brilliant discourse. But duty calls, and I must leave you now, dear listener, to ruminate upon these questions and all those delicious possibilities contained within. His wife, he explains, is quite mad, wandering about the house in a state of undress, talking in tongues, and generally behaving like a raving lunatic. Lady Frances herself is not present, but her husband clearly adores her, and he asks Holmes to help restore her to health. Is it a case of drugs? Has she been poisoned or mesmerized? Holmes listens patiently, then excuses himself to examine the ladies' room, which is done up in pink silk and furnished with a crib. Yes, a crib. Lord Carfax blushes at Holmes's query, and he hastily explains that his wife is expecting a baby. She is not merely mad, he says, but mad with child. Intrigued, Holmes returns to the sitting room and grills Lord Carfax further. Long has his wife been ill? Was anything unusual in her past? And above all, what is the nature of her madness? Lord Carfax answers each question with a perfect gentleman's propriety. His wife's illness came suddenly. There's nothing unusual in her past. And he hesitates to describe his wife's madness, other than to call it violent and disturbing. But Holmes, bless his logical heart, refuses to be put off. If he is to get to the bottom of this case, he will need more information. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Gather round, for this mystery hinges upon a most unladylike weapon, a pair of scissors. You shall hear me, but I shan't see you. Yes, let us keep our distance. After all, there are secrets even shadows cannot bear to witness. Imagine yourself seated in a plush armchair, firelight dancing in your eyes, ready to unravel a story fit for the drawing room. Well, then let us begin. It is December 1888. London shivers in a cold so biting that even chimney smoke freezes in the air. Inside number 2-1B Baker Street, however, all is cozy warmth. Our favorite detective sits propped up in his armchair, pipe in hand, eyes twinkling beneath his deerstalker hat. It is not Holmes who speaks first, but the game's most intrepid chronicler. Mrs. Hudson bustles in with a steaming tray, interrupting a study session between Holmes and Dr. Watson. Our detective allows himself a smile. I say, observes Watson, noticing both the interruption and the twinkle in Holmes's eye. That is a new note in our household. Mrs. Hudson announces her entrance. Women, says Holmes, are never late and never wrong, but they are always ready to tell you that they are not late and that they are not wrong. Watson stares back at him. You surely do not mean that, Mr. Holmes, he says quietly. My dear Watson, retorts Holmes. You know as well as I do that the average woman is incapable of appreciating such refinements. Watson looks mildly mollified, perhaps a little bit exasperated. He is used to these pronouncements by now. Holmes believes himself a kind of scientist, relying on logic, reason, and observation. Women, sentimentality, domesticity, all these things are outside his realm of understanding. Or are they, if you ask me? Watson is often bewildered by Holmes's pronouncements, but he also knows better than to argue the point. So he lets his friend's words hang unanswered in the air, allowing the conversation to flow smoothly towards the evening's mystery. What is it that brings our heroes together tonight? The strange case of Lady Frances Carfax? In a flash of insight, Holmes recalls a missing persons report from earlier in the week. Now, if you can spare a moment, why not indulge in a spot of speculation? Do share your thoughts in the comments below. The gaslights sputter on, chasing away the dusk and revealing the worn faces of Londoners making their way home. Above them, chimneys send smoke curling into the gathering dark, while below, foot-shuffling feet fall into step with the rhythm of the city. These sounds mix with others tonight, a concertina's melancholy wail. The rumble of a passing cart, the sudden bark of a dog, the clash of voices raised in anger or mirth. The night is alive with possibilities. Beneath the murky sky, dreams take flight, hopes are born, fears find voice. The River Thames flows on, carrying with it the day's grime and the echoes of its bustle. The rhythmic pulse of the city slows, but it doesn't stop. And papers, the ghosts of stories past and future dancing in the lamplight. Her pen moves, guided by the tales she has gathered, giving voice to the voiceless, breathing life into the forgotten. Her words flow a tribute to the city that never sleeps, a tapestry woven with threads of struggle and resilience, hope and despair, love and loss. All set against the backdrop of a city that stands as both a symbol of progress and a microcosm of humanity's complexities. As she writes, the boundaries between observer and participant blur. She is no longer just Eliza, the writer. She becomes a conduit, a storyteller, a keeper of the city's soul. With each stroke of her pen, she immortalizes the lives she has encountered, ensuring that their stories endure. Echoing through time, reminding all who read that beneath the grime and smoke beneath, the bustling crowds and towering chimneys beats the heart of a city, and within it the beating hearts of its people. And as the night deepens, her words become a tribute, a hymn to London, the eternal city, forever shrouded in fog and smoke, forever teeming with life. Forever a canvas on which humanity paints its story. For in the heart of London, even in the quiet of the night, life goes on, breathing, beating, dreaming, beneath a sky veiled in smoke and shadow. In this city of contrasts, where shadows dance with light and whispers carry on the breeze, Londoners navigate the darkness. Each step, a testament to their strength, their spirit, their humanity. Its brick facade, stoic, its windows like watchful eyes gazing out onto the world. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of ink and paper. On a desk bathed in lamplight, a young woman writes, her quill scratching across parchment, giving form and voice to the stories that bloom in her imagination. Her name is Eliza, and she is a writer, a weaver of words, a chronicler of lives lived on the edge of society's gaze. She has spent her days wandering the labyrinthine streets of London, observing, listening, becoming intimately familiar with the city's soul. She has sat with the aristocrats sipping tea in sunlit drawing rooms, discussing art and literature, their words lilting like music. Yet her heart beats in time with the city's pulse, is drawn to the stories whispered in the shadows, the songs sung in smoky taverns, the laughter echoing from crowded workhouses, the silent tears shed in dim oil lamp light. She has walked among the masses, feeling the city's heartbeat beneath her feet, heard the murmur of discontent, the cries of overworked children, the rumble of discontent brewing in the hearts of men. She has seen poverty's harsh grip, the gnawing hunger in a child's eyes, the desperate search for work, the quiet dignity of those who strive to rise above their circumstances. She has witnessed joy too, the camaraderie forged in the fires of adversity, the kindness exchanged between strangers, the flicker of hope that refuses to be extinguished even in the darkest corners. Their stories, though hidden from most, are the beating heart of the city, pulsing through the fog and smoke, whispering tales of resilience, courage, and the enduring power of the human spirit. The river sings its ceaseless song, flowing ever onward, reflecting the fading glow of day. And somewhere, tucked away in a quiet corner, a young woman sits writing.
Ow.
Her pen scratching out the final notes of a composition, a story born of the city's heart. As the night deepens, London never sleeps, not truly. Some snatch hours of slumber between long shifts, others find uneasy rest in overcrowded rooms. Dreams perhaps of open fields or faraway shores, or maybe of soaring cathedrals, reaching for skies unmarred by smoke. For London, even in darkness, remains alive. The fog creeps in from the river, clinging to lamp posts, wrapping around corners, muffling sound and stealing faces away. It gathers in the valleys between buildings, brushing against rough stone, smoothing over sharp edges, softening the harsh lines of a weary city. Here the air is thick with coal dust and human stories, tales carried on the wind, a mother's lullaby. The shout of a child at play, the scrape of a chair in an empty hall. The shadows lengthen, and the gaslights flicker, painting pools of orange on grimy window panes, revealing moments of quiet beauty. Amidst the grime, a dog's tired head resting on a worn rug, a cat's green eyes gleaming in the gloom of face. Framed by lamplight etched with lines of work and worry, as the darkness deepens, secrets stir, lovers whisper beneath windowsills. Conspirators gather in smoky rooms, beggars huddle close for warmth and comfort. Faces peer from behind curtains, watching, waiting, hiding. And in the grand halls of power, decisions are made that will echo through the fog-laden streets, shaping destinies, weaving futures, casting long shadows on the walls. As the moon climbs higher in the night sky, London settles into a restless sleep. In a quiet corner of London, amidst the bustling city, sits a house on a quiet street.
Ow.
But now, with the city hushed in slumber, she finds herself back in her haven, surrounded by books.